dtitrader.com/Telegram and dtitrader.com/YouTube. All right, and welcome into our train and trade session. Let's see, we probably want to go ahead and hit the disclaimer real quick. So risk disclaimer, there is a very high degree of risk involved in trading, and you and you alone are responsible for the decisions you make in terms of trades. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and well, I think that just about covers it. That's the big point. We'll post the link for the slides. Yeah, let's see if we can see if I can get that for you. Let's see.
I got it, Chuck.
All right,
Hey,
great.
Sherry, I answered you. If you want to scroll up, I answered you directly about that your question there. Tom just answered you as well. We got a new month starting next week, of course. And I would count Monday as day 3 on that NVIDIA trade. It was part of Tom's Magic 5 today. I'm going to show you during the session. We're going to show you how NVIDIA was is acting normal. We just need that S&P, the NASDAQ to perk up. All right. Thanks, Chuck, for posting slides. All right. This is where Tom gives his opinion. Normally, 69.11 is the daily pivot. Part of today's presentation is going to show you the value of that pivot Tom gives you every day. It truly is. Obviously, it's impossible to narrow everything Tom does down to one thing, right? He does so much for everybody, but that pivot every single day, if you're going to latch on to one thing, latch on to that, it's going to help you trade the markets. We got the October spreadsheet. Now we're not going to look at it, but I put the link here because it is the last trade day of the month, and you all might want to save that for your records. We're going to have a new spreadsheet starting next week. Once we get past Wednesday, which will be the 3rd day of November, we'll put together a new November FTD stock spreadsheet, and then we'll go from there. But the link will change, and this is the last time you'll see the October link on the slide deck. So be sure to grab it from the slides if you want to keep that. I'll update it at the end of the day one last time, and then we'll move on to the new month. This is Train and Trade for October the 31st. Happy Halloween. Last day of October. As a reminder, Tom's always giving trades during these train and trade sessions. Everybody seems to love them. We'll keep doing it in November. Any and all trades given during train and trade are usually sent to the TNT program. The TNT program is something real special here at DTI. I'm going to show you a little bit about it today with Tom's Magic 5 that he gives you every single day of the week. Magic 5 tickers with trigger numbers to help you make some money. High odds probability trades that Tom is pinpointing. Show you that in a little bit. But all trades that are given in Train and Trade are tracked in the TNT program. You can join the TNT program, dtitrader.com/TNT. It's probably the best value you can get here at DTI with Tom. All right, today's focus is wrapping up October. And it really, it's another, we say a historical month at October, but it's just been month after month after month with Tom. He's been pinpoint accurate with everything he's doing. So let's talk a little bit about it. The following slide really should say enough. Let's show it here. In the month of October, Tom's closed 40 trades. He's had 36 winners and only 4 losers. That's 90% accuracy. Now, he usually trades 4 out of 5, around 80%, somewhere around that. So the month of October has been one for the books, 90% accuracy. Right. Hey, that's great, Jennifer. Jennifer says Rocktober. I like that. Give us an idea in the chat who all benefited from following Tom in the month of October when he's giving you trades at 90% accuracy rate. Should have been right. Should have been an enjoyable month for everybody. All right. Patrick said it's his first time here. Welcome, Patrick. Welcome, Patrick. If there's anyone new here with Patrick, I'm going to post the DTI white papers. This white paper booklet is not here just to give you a link to look at. We hope that you read it over the weekend, maybe. It sets the foundation for everything Tom does and uses with the DTI method to get to this 90% accuracy rate. Carrie said he benefited big time. Laura said outstanding month. Jerry said it was a great month. I'm just going to repost some of these. David said he did. Sherry said she did. Philip did. Carol said another one for the books. Jim took nearly every trade. He says, thanks for the excellent results. Neil says TNT is a fantastic class for traders. And that really is it. I mean, if you're a trader, if you like to trade the markets, you're going to get all kinds of food for your trading, itch, if you will, in TNT, that TNT program I mentioned, dtitrader.com/TNT. Tom gives probably, we counted it up, between the Magic 5 tickers every day, plus the pre-market opportunities he points out at night or in the morning time. So that's really post-market and pre-market. And then all the live option trades we give during the cash market. It's about 35 opportunities for the month or for the week, every single week. So just an incredible program filled with opportunities. Rob said it was a home run month. Thanks, Rob. Hey, this is a good one here. I like this one. Mary says, thanks to Tom, my birthday month, happy birthday, Mary, was a booming birthday gift. She was able to pay off her husband's car. How about that? That's pretty cool. That's a unique one there. Thanks, Marianne, for posting that. But it hadn't just been October. I know October's been an incredible month, 90% accuracy. Can't argue with that. Patrick says, what's your historical win rate for the last 3 months? Well, Patrick, we want to do you one better. This is from May to October, so count the months. That's May is 1, June, July is 3, August, September. This is over 6 months, Patrick. The last 6 months, Tom's been on quite the heater. He's had 205 winners, 31 losers, and 1 break even. So that's 86% accuracy. Patrick's hard to please. He said, that's not bad. I'd say it's not too bad at all. Great run for Tom. All right. So I want to look at a couple of, a few highlight services from DTI because that's across all of his programs. And the first one is the Weekend Profits Club. Now, usually we get a trade from Tom on Friday afternoon, and he recently updated the strategy to better attack the market conditions, which Tom often does across his services. And the results have been phenomenal. 9 of the last 10 winners in the program for the month of October. We had 4 winners and no losers. So this is week 5. We're looking forward for another trade today from Tom before the close. The T-Boz All-Star is Tom's longest running service. That's also 9 of the last 10. And in the month of October, had 6 winners and 0 losers. The one ticker payout, and just an unbelievable 31 trades in a row that Tom is on a win streak here. I don't know if Tom may have a baseball legend to compare that to as far as a hit streak, but for the one ticker payout program, that's 31 winners in a row, including 3 in October. And finally, here, his newest program, the SPX Alerts that people are loving. He had 8 winners and 2 losers in the month of October. We're getting things ironed out in that program, getting people on board, understanding how the process works. trading a very popular market, SPX and XSP. All right, let's get to some education today. And Sherry, the October spreadsheet that you're looking at, I'm going to update that at the end of today to finish up October. So just keep that same spreadsheet you're on. All right. Today's pivot from Tom was 69.11. 69.11. What does that mean? Right? We try to keep it simple. If Tom gives a pivot of 69.11, if the market is able to get above 69.11, then the majority of stocks follow the S&P 500. We're going to be looking to trade the market long. If the S&P can't get above 69.11, then we're not going to be very active trading the market long, because the S&P is going to, if it's pulling back, the majority of stocks are either going to pull back, or if they're bucking the trend, most likely they're going to run into resistance sooner rather than later. Type in yes in the chat if you understand that. We always follow the S&P. We start everything with the S&P. The first white paper you come to, if you're new, by the way, on that DTI white paper booklet, I think one of the first, should be the first, is called the Seven Sisters. All right, Seven Sisters. Part of the Seven Sisters, it starts with the S&P 500 futures. That's where we start everything, because the majority of stocks do follow the S&P. Then you got the NASDAQ futures and the Dow futures. The DAX is over in Germany. Gold, crude oil, and bonds. All right, read up on that. But the S&P is critical to everything we do. That's why Tom gives a daily pivot on the S&P futures. So set an alert at 69.11. If the market can get above 69.11 and perhaps make a new high, which was around the 1819 level, we might have turn what's been kind of a lazy couple of days in the market, no excitement, into end of the month rally. We'll see. We don't know that. The market's got to tell us that. And the first step to that this afternoon would be getting above 69.11. I have no idea if that will happen, but I know how to set an alert on my platform. Hope you do too. And Tom wants to ask if you all know how to set an alert. We got a lot to cover here. Deborah, we posted slides. We'll post them again. We'll post them several times here from now until the end of the session. In case you're just tuning in. All right, we mentioned TNT and the Magic 5. All right, every single day, Tom gives his Magic 5 in the TNT program. You can see at the top here, it says buy NVIDIA above 205.55, Palantir above 255, Micron above 227.55, TQQQ above 121.11, and Tesla above 447.55. He also says, gives you an idea of what strategy he would use. Delta 10 option out to November 21st. But circled here, it says as long as the ES is above 69.11. So a question for you. Has the ES traded above 69.11 since the cash market opened today? Type yes or no in the chat. All right, bunch of no's, bunch of no's, bunch of no's. Okay, good. So now we got a bunch of no's, which is good. All right. Let's go back to the idea of trading in the direction of the S&P. I mentioned earlier that with the S&P pulling down below pivot, the majority of stocks are going to be sluggish or pulling back. All right. And there's a question in the chat. It's a good question. It says if we don't hit 69.11, but the Magic 5 are kind of bucking the trend, can we still take the trade? And the answer to that is one, you're your own trader, but you should have some expectations, right? The expectation should be that you may not get as big of a run as you are planning. So you kind of have to lower your expectations. You can still take the trade if it's really showing a nice trend, but you should limit your expectations. So if for instance, this is just a basic example. If you normally go for 30 or 40% profits on an option, you might better lower that to 10 to 20, right? Because if the S&P is not playing along, the Nasdaq's not playing along, chances are, like I mentioned earlier, that stock that's bucking the trend is going to run into resistance sooner rather than later, right? We want that money flowing with us. We want that wind at our backs. All right, now this is unique. When we show this sometime, I kind of put it on a slide that's a little bit easier to see, I think. Every morning, and Tom was answering a question there from Dinosaur Skip. There's Tom answering your question there. Let's get into this slide. Every morning, Tom posts what we call a moneymaker inside TNT. What the moneymaker does is it allows us to set a resistance number and a support number on the S&P futures. And this feature of the roadmap, the moneymaker, will calculate out and project levels on the stocks that we want to look at. So it's based on how these stocks are trading relative to the S&P recently. And what it can do is we can use these numbers to figure out, all right, well, what stocks are showing relative strength and which ones might be showing relative weakness. I've got the Magic 5 listed up there, and I want you to make note that when I took this picture, the S&P had traded down to a low of 77, so it hit that 81 number, which happens to be the week open. That's for another discussion there. And it was trading at 85. And I want you to make note of where the moneymaker said these stocks, in theory, should have been trading. 204.85 on NVIDIA, 201.02 on Palantir, 226.26 to Micron, 117.91 on TQQQ, and 448.80 on Tesla. Hey, Pastor, type your email into the chat and I'll get someone to reach out to you. Before you go, type your email into the chat. If you want us to reach out to you, we'll call you today. Got it. Thanks, Patrick. All right, so folks, the bottom, I highlighted the bottom number here because the S&P pulled back to that number, right? When the S&P pulled back to that number, we can say this, in theory, is where these stocks should have been trading. So now let's move this text over to the right so you can see where they were actually trading. I've circled where they were actually trading. If you look at NVIDIA, it was trading as expected. It was supposed to be around 204.85. It was around 204.90, right? That's as expected. How about Palantir? Palantir was supposed to be at 201. It was up close to 203. Palantir showing relative strength, and it's been showing relative strength over the past several days. I've been watching this week. All right, and look what Palantir is doing. It's a very strong stock. Micron showing relative strength. It was supposed to be down at 226 quarter. It was at 228 quarter. TQQQ was supposed to be around 118. It was around 118. So it was acting as expected. And Tesla was showing strength. 448.80 is where it was predicted to be. 453.17. So if you were trading the Magic 5 or planning to trade the Magic 5, you kind of have some leaders in the clubhouse here, don't you? Palantir, Micron, and Tesla showing early strength. What that tells me is if I was limiting not really limiting, but if I was focusing in on the Magic 5 for the entire day, if we can get the S&P back above 69.11, Palantir, Micron, and Tesla are going to be in front and center in the focus. All right, does that make sense? Yep. Okay, good. Now it takes a little work to get there in terms of spotting that relative strength, but the moneymaker makes it a little bit easier to get there. And if you kind of set up, if you roadmap users, kind of set your platform up with a certain tab to have it all the way here, it certainly makes it easier as well. So let me just show you a setup real quick. Got the moneymaker up top, a chart down bottom right of the S&P, and then I just simply had a custom page over here to the left with the opening price, the RB open, and the last traded price. Tom says those will be 3 home runs if we can get the S&P above 69.11 heading towards 69.35. There you go, folks. Palantir, Micron, Tesla, top of the board. They're the horses leading the race right now. We just got to get the S&P and the NASDAQ to play along. Moneymakers posted inside the TNT program. Mr. Ramahan, DTItrader.com/TNT. That's just a small portion of what everything Tom does inside TNT. The Magic 5 is really, it's a huge thing that he does every single day, but it's just a small portion. And I would recommend using the Magic 5 with the Moneymaker feature, similar to what I did here, to help you figure out, all right, what's stronger, what's weaker. Hey, John asked, where do you get the support numbers and resistance number of the S&P? That's a great question, and that's actually part of our presentation today, John. So I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, and he's going to tell you a little bit about key numbers as we head into the new month next week.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. And yeah, and we'll look at the slides. I might even try and take over the projection, do live, but I'll do that after we've hit these slides. So whenever you're looking at numbers, you want to have, first of all, start with the bigger picture. So what we're looking at, current price numbers, what we know about the market. We know the October high was 69.5375. We know last week's high was 68.41 quarter. Those are really the two numbers that are controlling this market right now. You'll notice we're doing a lot of trading right around the open, which if you get a calculator and add those two numbers together, divide them by two, you'll get right to about the open for today, 68.97. So that's where we are right now. Now, what we do know about the market going backwards a little bit, first of all, any number ending in 00, like your 6,800, 6,700, 6,600, those are all going to be big numbers. But we also know the September high, 67.57. The fourth quarter open, which is the open of October, 67.2550. And this is an interesting one, the 66.70. We were looking at it a lot a couple of weeks back. That is GDP PCE pivot plus one of the things I'm going to be showing you about in a minute, CPR from the month of September. So had a lot of build up there. And then the October low, 65.40, and I'm kind of rounding that number a little bit, but the 65.40 area, pretty big. So those are going to be the numbers we know. And probably the ones we want to pay attention to. You could probably assume, because those 00 numbers are going to be big, that if you go up to the next level, first number you're going to be looking at has 3 zeros behind it at 7,000, right? So we'll get into that a little bit. Right now, yeah, prices being updated. Market's continually moving though, but let's see our next slide here. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. And this is going to be the full list of support levels, which was basically what you were looking at, but we'll add in the September open, the July FOMC pivot number, which was at 64.19, the August open at 63.59.50, and the July open at 62.45.75. And you'll notice when there are big gaps between the numbers, like between 66.70 and 65.40, we throw in That's 6,600. That's using the historical numbers, but also using sort of a basic understanding of what numbers are going to be important. Now, this is what we know. Now, let's go to the next slide and let's project out to what we don't. So the next slide is going to be our resistance levels. Now we know the October high at 69.53.75. 69.70 should be a big number. We're going to keep an eye on that. And then you get into kind of these incremental numbers. 7,000 because it's 7,000. 70.25 because it ends in 25. I threw in here the 70.49 quarter, which is 1,100 points above the open. But if you want to round that up to 70.50, you get kind of the same impact. And then we're just going to stair step through the rest of the numbers. We'll refine this information as we go through this area and have the market basically say, this is what I think versus this is the reasonable expectation. So 7,100 because it ends in two zeros, 7,125. 7,150, 7,175, 7,200. So whenever I'm projecting out how a market's going to look, we just take that scale of numbers and just run it up the ladder and move from there. Now, this is just kind of the basis. I'm going to get a little bit more technical when I put together my plan for November, but that's going to be based in large part on where the November Open is. So we can only project out a little bit here. I think we've got,
Hey, Chuck, I got a question for you.
yeah,
So the October Open was 67.25. That's the open of the fourth quarter.
right.
You put more emphasis on that 25 number since the quarter opened at 67.25.
Honestly, I'll put more emphasis on that when we get into the month of December, where we'll be finishing the quarter. The middle month of the quarter is always a little bit weird because you're not finishing the quarter there, and you've already got a new open of the month. So the quarterly emphasis kind of takes a little bit of a back seat in November and comes back in full force in December. So as it relates to the full quarter, is the 25 number important because the open of the quarter is there? Yes. But the emphasis on the quarter is not going to be so big in November. It's not going to be that big in February. It's not that big I've got to figure out my months here, May or in August, but it is big, obviously, because it's the open of the month in January, because it's the open of the month in October. And then it becomes bigger as you get to the end of the quarter in December, that October open comes back into force. So kind of it's a matter of where the emphasis is put. And in November, the quarter, unless you're actually challenging the open of the quarter, doesn't really mean that much. So projecting out to 71.25, not so much, but 67.25.50, the open of the quarter is would be a big number, yes. So it's kind of both, I guess, is the correct answer there, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Really,
Okay.
I've never heard you talk about that personally. I know you probably have in your key numbers class, but yeah, that was great to hear. How about there's a great question in the chat. How do you use these numbers? Could you talk a little bit about how to, from a trading perspective, how to use these resistance and support levels?
Well, when it comes to making a trading decision, what actions are we to take at these resistance levels or the support levels for that matter? Um, that's going to depend a lot on what the market looks like in the moment, Bob. So, what am I going to do on November 3rd at 2:58 p.m.? I don't know because I'm not there yet. But I do want to be aware that those numbers exist because they are going to influence what I'm seeing in the market at that time. But how does that influence work? I don't know because we can see some things in the market between now and then that shake it up. So this is just a preliminary view of extremely rough draft, and we're going to go through the actual actions of the market as we get to those prices and the time it takes to get there. So you'll have more information. You'll have an idea of how the market is behaving. You'll know what economic reports are coming out as we're near those numbers. So there's probably about, I don't know, at least five or six different factors that go into what am I going to do if I get to that number. So it's not just the number in and of itself. The number makes me aware that it's there, but the market defines the actions I take. So the numbers don't define the actions, the market does. And it's not a great answer because it is nuanced, but that's the reality is the numbers just kind of put us in the right mindset of what we could be looking at. So 7,000, for instance, it's a huge number. No one's going to doubt that. Uh, but if you have a high at 69.94 and then you start the day, if I get above 69.94, I'm thinking the market's going higher. But if I base it on 7,000, I'm waiting for the market to get above 7,000. Okay, well, there's a trade before I get there. So I could already be in a long position as I break that number. So would I buy above 7,000 if I'm already in based on the market action from the previous day? Probably not so much. So it is very data dependent. Man, you just made me sound like Jay Powell. Why'd you do that? Anyway, so it's going to be data driven when we get there.
Chuck, I actually think that was a great example, answer, and it really showcases that trading is, in a great extent, following rules in your process. But at the end of the day, it's also an art, right? You got to have some flexibility, got to have some improvisation, if you will.
Mhm.
And so it's a combination of both, which makes that's what makes it such a difficult game, but a fun game
Yeah.
to play.
So, Jonathan, I'm going to take over the screen for just a second because I do want to look at a few things that we can project out, if that's all right with you.
Yep, sure
All
thing.
right. So, let's see. Put up my screen one, and I want to make sure I'm seeing what you guys are seeing. Okay, so this is basically the spreadsheet where I put all that information. You might remember yesterday we looked at the FOMC pivots. That's just kind of in the way, but I've got this little spreadsheet here which helps me look at the market. This is what we use to create the pre-market planner, and you can see how the markets were projected from last night. The 81 number, we didn't quite get to the first target at 66, so it's not really a big threat down. But let's go and look at the way we started out the week. I had 69.50. We went to 54, so we went a little bit beyond that first target. And then the market has had struggle, went down to 68.51. There's your 68.41, which was last week's high, kind of a big number. But let me show you guys a little data section here. This is what last week looked like, and we're projecting out, floor pivot, my pivot. This is basically just calculated numbers. They don't really mean that much. But the range of the market, the change in the market, percent change, and then this little thing down here called CPR. CPR is a bit complex because it's basically change as a percent of range. And then we project out, very complicated formula up there, if you can see that. Don't worry about copying it because you have to have all the things in the right place. But we're projecting out what the reasonable retracement would be or where the market would become overbought or oversold. Now, that made 67.96 quarter a number that we were kind of interested in. Market's not really retracing at all, and that's okay. That's fine. So we got that 68.41 quarter before we get there. But let's go a little bit further. This is where it gets fun. I'm going to take away last week's information and start putting in a little bit of this week's information. I'm not going to go through all the markets because we don't really have time for that. But let's just look at the S&P here. What do we know about the S&P? We know the high of the week, right? Can someone tell me what the high of the week is? I just want to get that typed in here. See how much you guys are paying attention. Am I going to type it fully before? Okay, I have typed it. Okay. All right, 69. No, no, no. High of the day is 69.18. High of the week, 69.53.75. Low of the week, and for that, that would be yesterday's low, right? So yesterday's low was 68.51. Okay, and now we are currently trading, let's just call it 68.84. So market's at 100 and, range of 102.75, and it's currently up 3 points. But where would the market need to get to be overbought? Well, I'm taking one half of 102.75, adding that on to the open, and that would tell me that anything above 69.32 gets into kind of an overbought condition for this week. So why is the market hanging back? Because it's actually getting ready to set up that next move. Now we can do the same thing on a monthly basis. You can see what last month looked like, but I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I've got this section where I can recreate numbers. So we open this month at 67.25.50. High of the month, 69.53.75. What was the low of the month? Anybody know? Let's go into our roadmap, figure that out. Just flip this over to swing view and blow up this S&P chart a little bit here. I imagine it's going to be that October 10th low. And yeah, it looks like it is 65.40 quarter. It's a big shocking number. So let's put in 65.40 quarter. And last traded, we'll just call it 68.84 again. This is interesting. 69.32 based on the open of the month and the range of the month. And you go to the weekly, 69.32. Are those the exact same numbers? No, not quite, but they're pretty darn close. So I'm going to go into the weekend thinking about 69.32, a calculated number. If we get a rally and it stops at 69.32, just remember you heard it here first. So CPR, kind of a fun little tool that we use. Change is a percent of range. It can work for any time period, but you usually want to go out to the longer time periods. But just to let you know how powerful this market has been, this is what we're looking at for the year starting in January, 59.49 quarter, and based on the average range of the market, we were expecting a challenge of 69.52 as our top end target. I think we got it. Check, done. So if we keep going, we're going beyond what were the reasonable expectations at the beginning of the year. So a lot of people looking at the market going, "Oh my gosh, I'm not sure. This is scary. Is the market really that strong? Can it keep going?" Well, look, it has been powerful. We're in October and we've already hit the target number for the top of the year. Now, do we keep going? Sure, because you can go off the planner because that was back in January and this is now October. So I wanted to just kind of throw that out there, give you kind of a peek into some of the things that I'm looking at. But Jonathan, if you want to take the screen back over, we'll hit
Yeah,
those.
definitely.
Yeah, hit those last two slides and tell you about some of the things we've got upcoming.
Yeah, so real quick, how do we use that? We were mentioning, if you find yourself the S&P up above Tom's pivot today and you find yourself long, you should expect resistance at that 32 to 35 level. Remember, 32 from what Chuck just said, 35 from Tom's ultimate target today that he gave out earlier during this session. Just
Yeah,
some
no,
unbelievable information there, as Dave said.
in fairness, Jonathan, I didn't know about the 32 until I just put it up on the screen. So that's usually something I do at the end of the day or at the end of the month. So
Yeah. And it kind of it we're stacking our odds of where we should expect resistance is the way I see it. Now, the S&P may never get above 6911, so that may not come into question, but we're staying prepared is the key point here.
mhm.
The S&P's pulled back down to its weekly open, 6881. We're at the Genesis hour. which more times than not, it will mark the high or the low of the day. So we're trading at the lows. So we're going to be curious of whether the lows that are being placed right now on the S&P, we're going to be curious if those will be the lows of the day right now. But we got this key level in the markets. The S&P's pulled down to it several times now, 68.81. That's really the focus and for the rest of the day. How are we going to finish relative to the week open?
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to next week because I don't know if you were aware of this. Over the weekend, we're going to go on to standard time. We're going to leave daylight behind. We'll be back in sync with Europe and the rest of the world. So, from a timing standpoint, I think that's going to put us back on the firm footing we had at the beginning of the month. So, we've had this 1 week where we've had a time discrepancy, which we really haven't talked about that much. But I think that's going to make the reference bars a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner,
Yeah.
moving forward.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. While I'm showing the roadmap, who all in the room uses the roadmap software? Give us an idea. I'm asking you to type in yes in the chat because I want you to pay attention to what we're about to show. It's going to be very important with the time change over the weekend. All right, all right, all right. Now that everybody's focused, over the weekend after the time changes, and you can probably do this after at the close Friday, unless you're doing research on Friday and Saturday. You certainly want to do this on Sunday before the markets open up and before or at least when you open your roadmap next, or like I said, do it at the Friday's close. All right, so I got everybody's attention. Inside your roadmap, when you click on setup and go to computer, this area right here that says daylight savings at the close of business today, close the markets today, we're going to uncheck local daylight savings time and uncheck central. All right. Now, they should both be checked right now, regardless of your time zone. And we're going to uncheck those, right? At the end of the day, we're going to uncheck those to account for the time change. We're going to send out a note, of course, to everybody so you know and reminder to do that. But it's going to be really important to make sure your reference bars are in the correct place next week after the time changes. So don't
Yeah,
change it now, but make sure you do that before the day's done.
yeah. Now, one thing you did say this, Jonathan, but I'm going to go ahead and emphasize it. If you're doing research over the weekend, don't make that change until after you've done the research because it will kind of throw the backdated charts off a little bit. So get your research done, then make that change, and then be ready for Sunday night open.
Yep, yep. And once you do make the change, it won't really take effect until you restart your roadmap. So again, we'll send out a note. Remember what Chuck just said, and that's going to pretty much finish up the session today. Any questions on all the education we covered? I think it was a fantastic session. But any questions on what we've covered today? I'm going to shut the Zoom room down and then we'll listen to a stream of Tom's live trading with T-Buzz.
But before you do that, real quick, Stan asked the reference bars will shift 1 hour then starting next week. From your perspective, Stan, from most people's perspective, it doesn't shift. So the time is still the time. It's always the time. But yeah, from someone else's perspective outside of your time zone or outside of daylight, from the European perspective, for instance, yes, everything kind of slots back into space. But we're not actually adjusting the reference bars. We're just accounting for the time zones.
And hey, Dr. Bombay, I want to make a note that Tom's 1:30 session today is open to everyone once again. It's the last day of the open session. Tom was telling me he was excited about this morning when I talked to him before the open. He's got a new secret weapon that he uses at the end of the month, very end of the month, and the very beginning of the month. And he's going to show you that. It's kind of a premiere. That's something brand new, he said. I don't even know what it is, so I'm looking forward to it. It's at 1:30. You check your Telegram channels. We will have a link to join that 1:30 session. The link probably posted about a half hour before. All right. So again, this is the last day that his 130 live trading is open to everybody. So be sure to be there. All right. We'll showcase the roadmap at the session.